Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Red and Ed Show, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I'm your host, Jay Edgar, and we are dealing right now with a little bit of problem with the internet connection over where my lovely co-host lives. I promise she's coming back at some point here. We have been texting back and forth with each other, trying to see what's going on here and what we can do. I actually almost was able to pull her in via audio, and I now have a local phone number. It's a Google phone number, but it's local here, so we might be doing that for call-in shows coming up here in the near future too, so look forward to that. That might be a new addition that's coming up to things, so something to definitely check out here. But even with news outages and internet outages, the news stops for nobody here, so we do have to continue going on down the line and get to everything that we have here, and oh boy, do we have a bunch. My goodness, this has been a busy week. I didn't even realize this until I sat down to look over the document again today and get everything organized in, but this has been a massively busy news week, like to the point that I couldn't see. I mean, I had 30 articles on Contemporary this morning. That's how busy this week has been. I couldn't even believe that that was what we were seeing from off of this here, but that's just from over the weekend. That is just over the weekend. And think about everything else that we had going on off of this from the rest of the week here. So we will get into all of that here and more. I have got the Zoom call up and ready to go. So if the internet does come back in, and I'm not going to dox her, so I'm not going to say the city, but the city where Elaine lives, if it does come back in, she will be able to ring in right ready to go. But of course, she can't see the document either while she's on, so she's not going to be able to read articles. That's why we decided to hold off on voice. But we will see what's happening from this. But we've got a bunch of other stuff to get to today. The election from hell is continuing to go on like crazy. Nobody knows what's going on. Georgia has certified the election at this point, but that still may be coming through depending on what comes from the wonderful press conference and the ideas that Rudolph Giuliani had here. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. Michigan is going on through its processes and trying to figure out what's going on there. So we'll talk a bit about what's happening there. Pennsylvania is currently the big battleground going on, looking at the idea of possibly getting all of these votes thrown out due to a proposition that went through a Republican Congress just last year, and that could possibly invalidate a bunch of votes. So we'll talk a bit about that. Wisconsin is doing a partial recount in a couple of blue strongholds, so we'll talk a bit about what's going there, including what the poll watchers are saying from here. And that's just the beginning of this. That is just the beginning of everything else that's going on here. Moving on to other news, COVID is back in full swing, and all of our wonderful tyrant governors are sitting back and talking about what it is that they're going to do about their subjects. We're going to use that word loosely, going out for Thanksgiving. Plus, an awkward video from Andrew Cuomo and another awkward video from a South Dakota nurse who thinks that she knows it all. So we'll talk a bit about that. Lastly, the Warhawks are back in play, and we will talk a bit about Rittenhouse here because there's a bunch to talk about on that front too. So it's going to be all of this and more. Even if I'm running by myself tonight, this might be a long show just because of everything else that we're going on with. And of course, we will read live chat in between topics. So make sure that you get your comments and questions in to the live chat here. So I, or we, if she is able to get everything back up and going, can get those read and get your questions answered for you. It's going to be all of this and more over on the Red Ned Show. Thank you for checking us out live over on DLive, Twitch, YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook. And if you're over on Facebook, get one of the links above you. Get into one of the other chats so we can answer your questions. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to take some time, answer your questions as well, and have you participate with all of the rest of our friends up in the live chat. So looking forward to that. Hop on in there. Or if you can't catch us live or just catching up to the beginning of the show or the end of the show, you can catch us over on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, or over on demand on YouTube and over on BitChute.com. Remember, if you're over on iTunes, leave that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. Or if you're over on YouTube and BitChute, leave that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, because we are definitely going to be looking forward to moving up the algorithms over there as well. And get your friends to subscribe too. I've made the promise as well. If I can get up to 2,000 YouTube subscriptions before the first day of 2022, I will run for president in 2024. I don't know how far I'll go, but I will run. So we will see what happens off of that. Lastly, make sure you head on over to the Freedom Scoop Media Group. That is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as this show, Contemporary, The Daily Ignoramus, The Know Nothing Party, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Generational Gap, The Already Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show. All kinds of great content over there. And we will be adding another podcast because Elaine has started out on a solo journey of her own. It'll be a pre-recorded. It won't be live like this one here. But I have made the executive decision, and we will be adding that to the Freedom Scoop Media Group. So we're looking forward to welcoming that show on as well. More details to come, and I'm sure whether she pops in on this episode or the next, we will get some more details coming up out of that. So that's going to be that there. Let's check in with the live chat here just a bit before we get into the news articles of the week and some of the things to clean up and some of the other things to talk about through the week. Let's see what you guys are doing over here. McConnell, can I open that? I'm scared right now, McConnell. I really am, because I have no idea what's going to be on the other end of that. Ron is over here. It's Red Ned time. Well, hopefully we'll get a red. Hopefully. We've got the link in, and everything's ready to go. We've been texting back and forth, so we know what's going on over there. We know what's happening with that, and even if we can't get in, hopefully maybe she can pop in towards the end here and at least give a voice send-off for you guys. So you guys know that she's alive. I promise she is alive. Let's see. Harvey McLeod says Rick May died of COVID-19. This may surprise you with how distant I am with pop culture, but I guess I don't know who Rick May is. We'll figure that out on the end. So, yeah, there's that. Ron says, is that true, Harvey? McConnell smuggles coke, says show Tupperware. Harvey McLeod says that's what the word is. Fox McCloud himself, may he rest in... Oh, he was the voice of Fox McCloud. All right, we're going to take a chance for this. We'll see what's going on with this one here. See if I can possibly pop it up on the screen, too. We'll see what I can do for that. All right. Okay, that's going to be meme of the day here. Let's get that one up here, and give me just a sec. I got to adjust a couple things in order to do that here. Luckily, I used the same setup I used for Contemporary, so we can do this one here. That is what McConnell had up there for us here. How do you sleep supporting a murderer like Kyle Rittenhouse? Me? On a MyPillow. That's awesome. Thank you, McConnell, for that. That was cool. I like that. And thanks, Grant, for screening that for me real time. Grant, that's awesome. I love that. Murderer, you mean patriot. That's awesome. All right, thanks you guys here. So I will catch back up with you. Let's get in. I got a little bit of house cleaning to do A couple of smaller articles, a couple of other things that popped up throughout the week here, and a couple of corrections from weeks past. So let's get down to this. First and foremost on this, Ilhan Omar has separated herself from Tim Mynette's firm. So, I gotta switch a couple things over here. Whoops. Oh. Goddamn Fox News. Go away with your autoplay. Nobody likes you. Go away with that shit. Why would you reload like that anyway? Alright, anyway, going on with this one. Omar suggests Biden should reverse Trump's Middle East... Oh crap, that's... Excuse me, not the one I want. Where's the one I want? This one. I'm sorry, from the Star Tribune. U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar severs financial ties with her husband's political firm. So, that's been one of the controversies that's come up over the fact, and even the fact that she got married. She got married to her campaign advisor, who is drawing in millions of dollars from her campaign, knowing full well now that she has full access to half of the money that her donors are putting in without going in and, coming out and going through all the regular legal channels for all of this here. So she has cut ties with that. She is completely out of that at this point here. So now that they can't go back and complain about the fact that she does have ties with this, now they have to go back and find something else to complain about. But yes, Ilhan Omar, who divorced her brother to go and marry her campaign advisor, which was totally above board, trust me, is now separated from her husband's campaign firm. Chris Cuomo is in the news this week because he got up and said, "We do our job differently based on who's in power." This is coming to us from the Daily Wire on Monday night during the handoff from CNN anchor Anderson Cooper to his own show, Cuomo Primetime. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo appeared to inadvertently reveal his own partisan brand of newscasting, asserting, "We do the job different based on who's in power." So, yeah, there is that there. Let's have a listen to what that sounded like. I didn't put the video up for this one, but let's listen to what that sounded like.
The news continues right now. I want to hand it over to Chris for Cuomo Primetime. Chris?
State TV's got some new competition, Anderson. It's going to be very interesting to see how the narrative unfolds. For people like us, we do the job based on who's in power. Interesting. You notice what Langford said there, how the media, not this network, is playing his words, which were he would get involved. And now he isn't, and we know why. He has no good reason. Thank you, my brother, for bringing it to light. I am Chris Cuomo, and welcome to Primetime.
Yeah, we all knew it anyway, but at least he has the gall to come out and admit it. So that is that, and of course, the mainstream media does it differently based on who is in power. There's a shooting not that far away from here. Let me grab that article here. So, in the Mayfair Mall, which is about probably 40 minutes over there from where I'm sitting right now, middle of the day on Friday, there was a shooting. It does appear that a 15-year-old was taken into custody for this, and the rifle that was involved was found. It does appear, there were not details on this specifically, but it does appear that this had something to do with gang violence. Several people were innocent bystanders with this, but one of the biggest things to come up out of this story is the fact that Wauwatosa's mayor decided that he wanted to weigh in on that, and he had this to say: "Guns have no place in shopping malls or other places which crowds of people gather. Mayfair has a strict no-gun policy. If the shooter had complied with that policy, nobody would have been hurt." So if the shooter, who has come forward now and said, "You know what, I'm going to kill people," would have complied with the no-gun order, nobody would have got hurt. If the criminal had complied with the law, nobody would have been hurt. Thank you, Dennis McBride, for that nugget of wisdom. Let's keep going. Let's see here. Outside of Savannah, a voting machine was found dumped on the side of the road, and I have questions about this. This is from WSAV out of Savannah, Georgia. Dumped voting machine found outside Savannah. State confirms it's outdated. I have questions. I have a lot of questions about this. Why was it dumped? Why wasn't it decommissioned? Why wasn't it disassembled? Is there not an appropriate channel for how to discard something like this? Why did it not go through that channel? What can we do to tighten this up? And once again, why was it just tossed on the side of the road? I have questions. But I have an anticipation that I'm probably not going to get answers to those questions. Let's keep going. Oh crap, I didn't bring that one up here. Alright. Well, let's skip that one here. I didn't bring that one up here either. Alright. This is going absolutely Oh, I did bring that one up here. From NPR. Merrick Garland among Biden candidates for Attorney General, sources say. So, Merrick Garland could be the Attorney General. I mean, it's his seat. Or at least that's what they say about the Supreme Court. So, if this does go through and Biden gets asterisked in, Merrick Garland may be the Attorney General for the United States. Think about that. Meaning first he would also, I believe, have to get confirmed by the Senate, because I'm pretty sure that's a cabinet position that has to get confirmed. Maybe he'll be acting Attorney General. Who knows? Because I know Biden's not going to be able to get most of his cabinet through with everything that's going on with that. So, Merrick Garland for Attorney General. How does that make you sleep at night? All right, and the last one that I have here comes to us from the Daily Mail, and I do have a picture for that one too. It appears that a large sinkhole has mysteriously popped up in the ground in Toronto. And it looks like that, and it is filled with a glowing green liquid. Now, I don't know if the liquid is glowing or not, because this picture was obviously taken in the daylight. But, of course, everyone started thinking about Ghostbusters 2, when the River of Slime was underneath New York City. However, keep in mind, the River of Slime in Ghostbusters 2 was pink. Bright, bright pink. Whereas this is bright, bright green. This reminds me a little bit more of what we saw coming out of the canister from Techno Global Research Industries in Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. That's what I'm getting more out of this, more than just the whole thing of the River of Slime and the River of Evil that's coming down here. But let's see what the Daily Mail has to say about that. Who are you going to call? A huge sinkhole with a glowing green liquid oozing out is found on Toronto Street, as city officials say it's only non-toxic dye. What is non-toxic that glows? That's what I have to ask. What could this possibly be, and why is it glowing? But that is what we see from that here. All right, we're going to give one quick check back into the live chat here, see what you guys are doing, and then we are going to get into the news. Let's see. Grant says, did you see the restaurant in Buffalo throw out the COVID police? No, I did not. Throw me a link. Yes, Flubber, that was another one that was in there. Yeah, throw me a link in the Discord here, and I will look into that. We'll probably do that in the morning. No, I'm not aware of that one, unfortunately. I guess Ron is. He knew that one was grand. Spartan says, AOC Green New Deal. Yeah, we talked about that this morning. And we've got Flubber here. All right, let's get into the news, because we've got a bunch of that to get to. Starting with the Georgia. So Georgia's hand count is over at this point. Georgia is coming out and certifying their election, which means that now the legal challenges have to come into place. Give me just a second here. So reading here from KFDM News, Georgia Secretary of State to certify election for Joe Biden. Georgia's top election official said he will certify that Joe Biden won the state's presidential election after a hand tally stemming from a mandatory audit affirmed the Democrats' lead over Republican President Donald Trump. But that's not all with this story, because this continued to go and move along even after the hand count came and went. Now, Brian Kemp is getting involved with this as well, but as of right now, the Secretary of State is coming forward. He's coming forward and saying, okay, yes, this was all above board. We analyzed this, we investigated this, and this is coming up. And this is coming on the heels of the fact that we had a lot of weird things popping up with this particular election. Because of this particular election, they went through, they did the hand audit, and several thousand ballots were found in various counties through this. That right there is enough for me to come back and say, hold the fuck up here. I have questions. I have questions that need to be answered. I have questions that need to see. Now, one of the things I've been pointing out from the top of this, from the beginning, and everything else that I'm seeing off this, is the fact that this is different from the 2016 election in a very, very big way. Now, I was a little bit too young to completely understand what was going on in 2000 with Bush versus Gore. I wasn't paying that much attention, and I was volunteering for Bush, so I had very, very obvious biases at that point. But still, I didn't know much of what was going on. Politically at the time, I was just some young punk kid that was hoping to make a name for himself with this. But as of right now, nobody's conceded, which means they're sitting back and going through channels that they never thought that they were going to go through. We're not sitting here at a point where certain states can just pop up and certify because there are legal challenges to go through. The hand recount was one, but now they're going to go back and they're going to do a machine recount to go along with this. In addition, Brian Kemp is ordering an audit of signatures, which was one of the big arguments that was going against the first audit. Was they're not recounting anything, they're just going back and recounting all of the what they call the fraudulent ballots. And that's been one of the things to complain about going on with the recount in Wisconsin, and we'll talk about that in a second. The recount in Michigan, we'll talk about that in a second. And the recount in Pennsylvania is that they're not actually going through and doing anything. They're just recounting the ballots that came through and were fraudulent. Now, as I mentioned, almost 5,000 additional ballots were found in the hand recount, and it was just accepted as, oops, nope, it's nothing here. We just forgot to put them in here, and it's not going to do anything. And of course, the amount of ballots that they found were not enough to bring Trump back up over the top. But because of the fact that they found 5,000 additional votes, with a majority of them for Trump, and that was able to cut into Biden's lead, I have questions. Just like the voting machine that they found outside of Savannah, I have questions. I have big questions about this because none of this should be happening right now. It shouldn't. We should be able to come in here, look back, find out that we're comfortable with the results because of the way that the results were done, and be able to go forward with the certification. But I am not comfortable with anything that goes along with this right now. I am not. That finding 5,000, what didn't we find? That's going to be the eternal question for a lot of people. I got to bump my volume down just a bit here. Bear with me for a second. Because I see myself pegging over on OBS. So let me crank my microphone back just a little bit here. Yeah, that's way too high. All right, that's probably going to be a little bit better. Now you won't hear me bouncing up off the top of everything. Sorry about that. A little bit on-air production, but hey, when we're sitting in a situation like we're sitting in right now, sometimes you got to take just a little bit of a on-air production here. Now, as I mentioned, Brian Kemp is getting into the top of this and saying that it is time to audit. So to read here from CBS News, Georgia governor calls for audit after state certifies election results, from Carolyn Linton. Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp certified the state's election results Friday, saying that now that the results are certified, the Trump campaign can pursue other legal options to call for a recount. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, also a Republican, told reporters Friday morning that President-elect Biden had definitively won the state after the state's hand recount was completed Thursday. But Kemp didn't endorse the results, instead calling for another full hand recount. Kemp, who served as Georgia's Secretary of State before Raffensperger, has not publicly defended the state's election process from accusations from the president and his campaign. He alleged Friday that the audit revealed significant errors made in several counties, including Floyd, Douglas, and Walton. Kemp said the audit only looked at ballots, not the signatures on the absentee applications or the signatures on the ballot envelopes. He called for Raffensperger to consider addressing these concerns and conduct a sample audit of signatures on absentee ballot envelopes and compare those to the signatures on applications and file that the Secretary of State's office. So we'll see what happens off of this. I do and I don't like what's going on with this. And there are some reasons that I don't necessarily care for this. Now, your ballot is supposed to be secret. That's been one of the big things that comes along with our election is the fact that your ballot is supposed to be secret. Nobody's supposed to be able to know who you voted for unless you go out and specifically tell that person. And now they're going to pull the envelopes. And of course, they're going to be coming from the outside of the envelopes. Hopefully, without any sort of voting information that goes along with this, but now they'll be coming through and actually analyzing whose signature is on the outside of the ballot. And of course, seeing whether or not it matches what they have on file close enough to call it a signature match. Now, of course, everybody's signature is going to be different every single time that they sign it. Even my signature is different every time that I sign it. But to try and get it to a point that a signature expert can verify it, not an algorithm, an actual signature inspector can verify this, because they do have various different things that they go on and reasons that they can tell what a forged signature is and what it isn't. We'll see what happens off of this. But the battle for Georgia is not over yet at this point. We will see what's coming off of this. And like I said, with finding of 5,000 ballots, I have questions. And this gives me questions about every other state. Well, every other state in general. I'm not even going to say every other state that was close. Every other state in general. I have questions now because we found this. Whoops. Oh, hey, there's 5,000 ballots that we didn't load. I have questions. How long has this been going on? What is happening in places that we're not looking? Are there going to be other problems like this? So that's what we have going on in Georgia right now, which is kind of a bit of a pain that's going along with this. Lindsey Graham and Brad Raffensperger actually got into this just a little bit too. Now, of course, the squad is jumping up and jumping down Lindsey Graham's throat to try and say, hey, you know what? You're trying to do something illegal. And honestly, I can't argue with him at this one here. But Lindsey Graham got in the news earlier on this week because he was on the phone with Brad Raffensperger earlier on to try and convince Raffensperger to decertify several ballots that were put in and delegitimize them because of signature match issues. I don't know if this is legal or not. Now, of course, Graham's defense is going to be to only decertify ballots that have signatures that do not match. That's going to be his defense. But considering the fact that Lindsey Graham is an elected official from South Carolina, I don't think that he has a place to be sitting in and trying to put his fingers in the Georgia election. He shouldn't be anywhere close to the Georgia election. He shouldn't be anywhere near any of this. And as of right now, neither should anybody that's in the Senate. Because both of the senators that they have incumbent right now are running in, or waiting to rather run in runoff races, which is the next thing that we need to talk about with this. But, I mean, Lindsey, I'm excited for the fact that, yes, you want to jump up and you want to come in and play with the big boys, but you need to stay out of this one here because this isn't your lane. And, yeah, there's question as to whether or not you putting the pressure to Brad Raffensperger to decertify these particular ballots is legal or not. So you kind of need to watch where you're going here, watch where you're stepping here, and let the process play out. Brian Kemp is involved, Brad Raffensperger is involved, and even the Trump campaign, and hell, even Giuliani at this point, they're involved. Sidney Powell is doing so on an unofficial point. We'll talk about that in just a second here, but let the legal process play out in Georgia. That's what we need to be doing right now, not sitting back, not speculating on things, not pushing people to push ballots out from out of state. We need to be sitting down and letting the legal process walk through. And if it doesn't, then the people of that state, if they do feel cheated, they do need to come back and make sure that their elected officials are representing the will of the people, not the will of people who they're not supposed to be representing. So, and we knew that Georgia was going to be a tight one. That was one of them that they've been saying from the beginning was a must win. And I know that there was going to be some leftward influence off of this, as much of Hollywood production has been moving out of California due to high tax rates and into Georgia, where they can go take advantage of the low tax rates until they get sick of the lack of services and try to push Georgia into a high tax status. So we will definitely be seeing what's coming off of this. All right. And I do want to touch on the fact that they're trying to move more people in right now, too. We talked about this last week with Mr. Behavior. He and I sat back and talked about whether or not this was even legal to do for people to move into Georgia just to vote in the election and move out. And we both determined that it's probably not illegal, but there's probably some loophole into place. And now people like Yang and the squad are doubling down, trying to convince people to move from Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and elsewhere in California into Georgia, so they can stay there for long enough to vote in the election. I cannot see any universe where this is going to be illegal on any front. Plus, given the fact that now you've got to come out, you've got to get utility bills, you've got to get some sort of proof of identification that you actually live there, not just move in and hang out with a friend in their place, but actually have some sort of official mail going there to verify that you're living there. Georgia does have voter ID, but it's not required for you to have an in-state ID to vote in Georgia, which is ridiculous. You should always have an in-state ID when you're going to vote in a place. I get my driver's license changed every time I move, because I want to make sure that I'm voting in the right place and that nobody is voting for me in a place that I don't live anymore. So we will see what happens with that. But yeah, that's Georgia in a nutshell here. So let's move on here. Let's see what you guys are saying about this. Unsatiables here says Joe Biden will go into a coma for 4 years and wake up for re-election, then pass away in his sleep. Well, here's munches on the White House card. Oof. I would become a libertarian for any cute redhead. Yeah. Hopefully we will get our co-host back. Start a super PAC to hire redheads to radicalize the masses. Chris Tuttle says over on Periscope, says, I keep hearing audits. When is it happening? There was already one audit that happened in Georgia. It looks like there is going to be another audit happening there for signature verification. It looks like in Wayne County they're getting ready to audit the election. Ron Helton has a link here, everylegalvote.com/country. Ron will be right back. Unsatiable says, is there any hot redhead that can run for the Republican Party in 2024? I would vote for her in a heartbeat. I don't know, man. Most of them run over on the libertarian side. And it's big L libertarian too. So I don't know how far that will go. Ron says Georgia also has a 15% felon rate. So how many of those felons voted with ballot? Somebody voted for them. The dead and non-citizens. Spartan says, I don't vote for females. That's your prerogative. Ellen Louise June says, can you do a stream about the Great Reset? I would need to learn a lot more about the Great Reset in order to do a stream about that. I could possibly do an ed talk about that. We might pull something together here, because I'm planning on doing one over this weekend, but it might be on recounts and what's going on with recounts. But that might be an idea. We'll put that up. We'll add that to the idea box. Great Reset across. Yeah, because I got a couple people that I could tap for that too, that would be really, really good on that. They're more into conspiracy theory ideas than I am, so we could definitely do that. Chris Tuttle says, I voted in Florida in 2018 with a Connecticut driver's license. So yeah, see? They just want to verify your identity. They don't necessarily want to verify where you live. In Wisconsin, they do have to use your ID to verify where you live. Unsatiable, I can't read that. Ron says, just look for videos on the World Economic Forum and their last meeting at Davos. Davos. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to Michigan, because that has been a mess in and of itself. Michigan's been crazy with all of this here. First they're certified, now we don't know if they're certified, now we don't know what's going on with it. I mean, Michigan is the epitome of we have no idea what the hell is going on. So let's see what I've got for this one here. So at this point here, it looks like Michigan is certified. We talked about this a bit over on Contemporary, but with the certification that went along with Michigan, it came as people were being bullied to certify. We talked a bit about this last week with Chris Lokes, how they were throwing around the racist term and that they were actually flat out doxing people, to the point that both of the Republican members have come out and said that they want to decertify. Now, as of right now, I don't know if they can certify. I've been hearing stories left and right as to whether or not they can certify or whether they can't certify. It appears now that Michigan is going to move into an audit, but there are some other problems that go along with that. Let me see if I can find this story here quick. Not this one. No, they scrubbed that article pretty quick. Let me see if I can find that in the document over here. Sorry, I usually would have this more set up and more organized, but usually I've got somebody else talking over on the other side that can help fill the void while I'm going and looking for stuff. That's not the article that I want, but I need that one for later here. Oh crap, I got rid of that one. Anyway, so the Michigan AG is coming out and looking to see whether or not she can prosecute the Republican lawmakers that helped or worked with the Trump campaign. Here it is. So, from Law and Crime, which is a Dan Abrams production, lawyers toss cold water on Michigan AG's potential criminal probe into GOP leaders who met with Trump. So, Dana Nessel raised eyebrows Saturday morning when it was reported that she was exploring whether to launch criminal inquiries into state GOP leaders who may be working with President Trump to block Michigan's certification of ballots cast in the 2020 presidential election. Legal experts, however, appear to be split on the potential upshot of any such criminal inquiry at this stage. According to the Washington Post, two anonymous sources said to be familiar with the review told the news outlet that Nessel was specifically looking into whether those Republican Party elected officials risk committing crimes by successfully helping the 45th president in his efforts to deny voter certification. But, of course, now people have come out and said, no, you can't do that. That is persecution of your political enemies. That is against the law. So good on them for coming out and saying that, because if they could do that, that is a scary world. That's something that we could definitely see as a problem and something coming forward off of this. That's something that could be turned against us. And there's already talk about the fact that Kamala Harris wants to prosecute her political enemies for the fact that they are her political enemies. So this is not a new decision. This is not something new that we're hearing. This is something that we've been hearing for quite a while at this point. Hold on, looks like we're going to get some autoplay coming through here.
Well, last night
Nobody wants to listen to you, Tucker. If we wanted to listen to Tucker, they wouldn't be listening to a podcast. So, yeah, now we're sitting here looking at the fact that political enemies want to sit back and prosecute each other. Now, the big question's coming in with Wayne County, of course, and nobody wants to come back and certify. Well, The Democrats want Wayne County certified because they were able to come out and say, well, you're a racist if you don't want to certify Wayne County. Coming to the point where they were talking about the kids. This woman's children. What was her name? Oops. That's not what I wanted. I don't know. I can't find the article that goes along with this. But yeah, they were coming out and talking with this woman and saying, that they knew where her kids went, and they were essentially doxing her and bullying her up out of this. So at that point, and that's the parent in some people that comes out. Yes, you can go after one person to come out and say, yes, come after me. I want to do my job right. But once you start bringing somebody's kids into that is a different story. And that's disgusting, the fact that they wanted to bring somebody's kids into this. You can't bring you can bring people's kids into it, and they do it regularly here, but you can't be bringing people's kids into this because the kids are supposed to be innocent off of this, but that's the point, that they were going to be putting pressure onto this. So with that in mind, now Michigan is going to be going into an audit. People are going to come in and start looking into whether or not they can look at Michigan as a whole and count their ballots for that. So let's see what's happening with that. Pennsylvania is the next one. Let's go see what you guys are doing over here. Unsatiable says Harris was an Indian scammer in her past life. Ron Helton says 20 million people have felony in America. That's 1 in 12 adult Americans. That is high. Well, yeah, and that's, of course, you look at the statistics say that you go out every day, no matter how law-abiding you are, and you commit 3 felonies without knowing it because there are that many laws up on the books. So that's something we need to look into here. Spartan says only criminals are truly free. Spartan says probably a good amount of drug use related and sales. Yeah, that's going to be the problem that comes along with that too, is the fact that it's drug use, it's sales, and there's so many victimless crimes that are out there on the board. So let's move into Pennsylvania. So over the weekend, Pennsylvania moved to, hold on, let me get this up here. Over the weekend, Pennsylvania moved to certify their election as well. Another lawsuit came in and was immediately thrown back out by the lawyer in Pennsylvania, the district judge in Pennsylvania. So now that got thrown out, and a lot of people cried foul about that immediately because the judge that was involved in the case is an Obama appointee. He's an Obama holdover. So, of course, they're going to go out and cry foul because, oh my God, it's the deep state that's trying to push into this. Now, there were some interesting takes on this, and I talked about this a bit this morning as well, as to the timing of this and what it was that they had to do that went along with this. Let me pull the Daily Wire article up here for this one here. Another article up here. Okay, from CNN, if it ever loads. Federal judge dismisses Trump campaign Pennsylvania lawsuit. A federal judge dealt a death blow to the Trump campaign's effort to overturn President-elect Joe Biden's win of the presidency on Saturday by dismissing a closely watched lawsuit that sought to invalidate millions of Pennsylvania votes. It is not in the power of this court to violate the Constitution, Judge Matthew Brand of the U.S. District Court.
We're learning that the president has faced yet another major setback in his legal case.
All right, we need to fix that here because if I don't have my co-host here, we don't need to have the desktop audio on because all we're going to get is autoplay that comes out of that. It's not in the power of this court to violate the Constitution, Judge Matthew Brand of the U.S. District Court in the Middle District of Pennsylvania wrote on Saturday in a withering decision, hours after the final round of filings in the case came in. The judge wholeheartedly rejected the Trump campaign's attempt to throw out the Pennsylvania vote, noting that Biden has won the state and results will be certified by state officials on Monday. Biden has a margin of more than 81,000 votes in the state, which was interesting because he was down by over 100,000. When we all went to bed that fateful Tuesday night, he was down by that far, and yet now he is back up. He gained over 200,000 votes overnight while we were sitting here, while we were going to bed, and while we were going to this. However, there's an interesting take that goes along with this because this judge didn't pussyfoot around. He didn't go about, he didn't hear anything, and he didn't try to wind out the clock, which was interesting. Now, of course, this is the pressure on Trump to concede. When you listen to this, when you look at what's going on with this, there is the pressure on Trump to concede the election and just give it up and not even think about going with the challenging the certification or doing anything else with that. They just want him to give up the election and just say, okay, well, it's time to move on. It's time to move on to everything else. But with that, with what we're seeing off of this and what we are seeing with everything else that comes along with this, he didn't stop. He simply came in, he put his foot down, and he said it's gone. The Daily Wire offered an interesting counter to go along with that. Let's see what they had to say over here on the Daily Wire. Trump campaign, Pennsylvania court loss turns out to help us. And in that, now that this is completely tamped down, now that they didn't waste any time, now that they didn't try to run out the clock, for those of you who are football fans who would get the reference with that, because they didn't try to run out the clock, now the legal team for the Trump campaign and Giuliani himself can run back and challenge this in a higher court almost immediately at this point. They can go out and start filing this to get through what they have to do. And it does look like they've got some tricks up their sleeve with this. I'm talking specifically about Act 77. Do I have that up here? Yes, I do. So, from CNBC, updated 3 hours ago, Trump appeals big loss in Pennsylvania vote case that seeks to block Biden win. And I'm talking specifically about Act 77, which was passed by a Republican legislature in Pennsylvania last year to expand mail-in voting, to try and make it easier for people to vote by mail if they need to, and to put fewer excuses up for this here. The argument that goes along with Act 77 that they're bringing forward is the fact that it's unconstitutional and it violates equal protection under the law because not everybody's votes are going to be scrutinized, analyzed, or otherwise in the same way as they are when people come up and vote in person. Plus, of course, the election day arguments of, and this is something that's perennial that goes along with this, early voting and absentee voting. Those are always perennial arguments that come along with the vote every time. So they're going to go down the same path that they went with Bush versus Gore, the path of equal protection under the law and the 14th Amendment for the votes, whether or not the 14th Amendment was violated and whether these mail-in votes are legal. And with that, it's a possibility that they could either throw out the entire result of Pennsylvania or at least flip it if they're able to throw out hundreds of thousands of votes that came in Philadelphia and greater parts of Pennsylvania. Right now, it's looking like the strategy is not necessarily to try and get some of these states to flip. Now, of course, if they get Georgia to flip because of the signature audit, if they get all that thrown out, if they get Wisconsin and Michigan to flip due to the audits and everything else that they're looking into in those states, if they can get those states to flip, you're starting to get really, really close to that 270 territory for Trump. But even still, if they can get enough of these states thrown out, if Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan all get thrown out, which that's what they're trying to do, that means that nobody gets to 270 at this point. Which means that the election goes down to a state delegation. Now, I don't know if I'm willing to see a president that's voted in from a state delegation, because it's never been tried before, and of course, once this happens, as soon as the left sees that the state or that the president was brought in by a state delegation, the first thing that they're going to say is that the election was stolen. It was stolen. It was rigged. He played the game and he got into it whichever way. And I can see their point for that because he is playing this whichever way is possible. As far as it being rigged, I can't say that because, I mean, we're seeing all the rigging that's going on with these elections, but I can already see the riots forming if enough of these states get thrown out. And we hear that this is rigged. I can already see all of this happening. And yet, here we sit, wondering whether or not this is going to get certified and wondering whether or not this is going to get done. So we'll see what happens off of this. The Act 77 thing is, I mean, it's interesting to me because it does question the constitutionality of everything that happened with this and what that means for anything. So I definitely am interested to see where this comes from, what happens with this, and what goes to court. I want to sit down and read some of these briefs, some of these dockets, and some of these court documents that go along with this, and see what it is that they're challenging and how they plan to challenge it, which I'm sure some of this is classified too, but I want to sit down and read some of the court filings with this and see what it is and really see why it is that the judge in Pennsylvania could dismiss the Giuliani case with prejudice in the way that he did. And of course, because he dismissed it with prejudice, everybody on Twitter became instantly a political scholar. All right, let me see what you guys are saying here, and then we will move on and see what they're doing in Wisconsin. Let's see. Ron Helton says, concede bullshit Supreme Court. This is a republic, not a democracy. Time to prove that. Allowing them to put Biden in the White House is not good. New Green Steel is bad for America and the world. No, the mail-in votes were not legal because they canceled the votes of those who played by the rules. They've been saying that the 2016 election was stolen for the last 4 damn years. They can just STFU. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I damn sure don't want to see these commies get in there with their green new steel and cripple us. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Now, Wisconsin is just a bit of a different case at this point because, first and foremost, and I talked about this with Chris last week, first and foremost, they came up with an approximate bill for what it would cost to do a hand recount in Wisconsin. Now, keep in mind that Jill Stein did a hand recount in Wisconsin in 2016. Not necessarily because she thought she was going to flip Wisconsin. We know that Jill Stein wasn't going to get anything. But they need to get to a certain, third-party candidates need to get to a certain percentage in order to maintain ballot access. So she did the recount to try and get herself to a certain percentage to make sure that the Green Party would have ballot access this time, which they did not. The Green Party was not on the ballot when I went and voted, which was interesting to me. I know that they had a court case to try and see if they could get themselves onto the ballot for this time through. But they charged Jill Stein and the Stein campaign in 2016 $2 million to come and do the hand recount. The bill came out officially for the Trump campaign to do the same recount, and the bill was $8 million because of inflation, they claim, which there really hasn't been that much inflation in 2 years, but also the renting of a larger space and the personal protective equipment. I would love to see an itemized list of where they got to $8 million to get. And of course, the Trump campaign has to come up with that up front in order to get the recount in. And they did come up with it. I mean, Trump can come back and he can sell an asset. They are doing a partial, they're not doing a full recount in Wisconsin, they're doing a partial recount in Dane and Milwaukee counties, which are the two big Democrat strongholds in the state. And of course, the places that are going to be most fraught with any sort of fraud, if they are going to find any fraud, they're not going to find it in Iron County, they're not going to find it in Marathon County or La Crosse County, well, maybe a little bit in La Crosse County, but they're not going to find it in, like, I don't know, Buffalo County or something like that. They're not going to find it in these little tiny places that all went overwhelmingly red anyway. Where they're going to find the big parts of voter fraud, if there is any to be found, are in places like Dane and Milwaukee. I mean, look at, and I keep preaching about this, the gubernatorial race in 2018, where the two men were within a point of each other as they were counting the votes all night, just kind of bobbing back and forth with each other. Nobody broke 1% that night until 2 o'clock the next morning, when they suddenly found a box of 3,000 mail-in ballots, well, absentee ballots they called them at the time, but they found a box of 3,000 absentee ballots in Milwaukee County with a gluing error. And suddenly, Tony Evers was at 1.2% over, shutting Scott Walker out for a recount. In Wisconsin, there's no automatic recount. If the two candidates are within 0.25% of each other, then the state pays for a recount. If the losing candidate or even the winning candidate requests it, and if it's over 0.25%, then the candidate pays for the recount. But there's no automatic recount. If it's over 1% difference, by Wisconsin law, they're not allowed to do a recount at all. As of right now, Trump is trailing Biden by 0.6% in Wisconsin. So they're going to the recount. They're going to do this. Hopefully, and I don't know if they're going to be doing any sort of audits or not. I know that the Secretary of State is not interested in doing any audits, but hopefully the state legislature can come up and say, okay, we want to do an audit off of this, because there were some questions about that. They did ballots in the park where people were coming in with their absentee ballots and stuffing them up into a box. They were court ordered to keep that box separated away from all the other ballots in Dane County. And they just accidentally put those ballots in with the rest of the general ballots. Now, in addition to what's going on in Wisconsin with the recount and everything, they're having some discrepancies as to what's going on with poll watchers, which is, I mean, that's nothing new. That's something we've been hearing from the beginning of this. Poll watchers are not allowed in to see anything, to get involved with anything, or to do anything else with this. Got a tweet out from one of the poll watchers here. Where are you? Yep, here it is. And this is a longer tweet thread, but I've got the top tweet displayed up on the screen here. Let me get the rest of the thread up here so I can read this for you guys. So, Wisconsin recount, nice Trump observer, Scott Tapley, says, Wisconsin recount is, he's got this number too, because he loves alphanumerics apparently. 1. Wisconsin recount is a clown show. 2. Rules are constantly changing to thwart Trump campaign challenges, which we saw with the $8 million price tag that comes along with the recount going on here. And when you're coming up with money like that, that's not necessarily to come out because cost would be a problem. I'm sure that Trump could come out and raise the $8 million from small dollar donations immediately if he really wanted to. Or, I mean, the MyPillow guy might throw him $8 million if he really needed it. The point right now is more to try and drain the campaign, to try and make sure that they can't go through with any other challenges, to put another roadblock up in front of them. So that's number 2 on this. That's what you're seeing on the screen. Number 3, this morning they added a requirement that 2 observers needed to object for an objection to be made. 4, later this morning, we were limited to 1 observer per station, which is interesting because then 2 observers can't object. 5, now the rules have been changed so observers cannot talk to poll workers unless they are objecting to a ballot. No questions allowed. That's interesting. I would love to sit back and question somebody who I'm supposed to be watching here. Hey, what's going on with that? Why are you doing that? 6, a few minutes ago, the canvassing board decided objections because an observer cannot see the ballots are not allowed. That's the whole point of poll watching right there. 7, this after new rule that observers have to stand behind chair, and chair has to be behind yellow line, 5+ feet away from the table, and counters can hold ballots and or absentee applications at an angle that prevents observation. 8, it is clear that Democrats do not want anyone to be able to see what's going on. 9, why is that? Is there more of this? I see show this thread. Okay, and then the last thing he tagged Larry Schweikart, who I'm not sure who that is. Looks like a best-selling author, The Wild World of History, Professor Larry Schweikart. So that's what he's got going off of this. And I mean, if this is true, and I don't know necessarily how true any of this is because I didn't go and observe it myself, but to take Scott Tapley at his word here, this is wild. This is the same kind of stuff that we saw out of Michigan, out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. Okay, well, you can have poll workers, but we're going to move the machines 20 feet away from where the poll workers are. The poll workers can be within 6 feet of the counting area, but we're going to move the machines all the way to the back where nobody can see them. And yes, I understand that now there's COVID that goes along with that. Michigan had people in a separate room because of COVID concerns, but people could still go up to the glass and look in and watch that until they went up and they put plywood over the glass. If this is true, if this is actually what's going on with this, and once again, we've got to take Scott Tapley at his word because we have no evidence to the contrary at this point. But if this is what's actually going on, then I've got questions. This is the biggest thing that's been coming up to me since the beginning of this recount process. The biggest thing that I've been having a problem with all of this is, why is there so much opacity that goes along with this? If you've got nothing to hide, why are you being opaque about it? Why are you not letting anybody see what's going on? Why are you covering up windows with plywood if you've got nothing to hide? And if you have nothing to hide, this is also the bigger, and this is coming from people and going out to people who spent the last 4 years saying that the election was rigged, that Russia interfered in the election, that there was no opacity to this, that this election needed to be investigated, the 2016 election. This is going to the people that kept saying that, and the people that I presume would have been saying the same thing had they seen a result different in this particular election. Had they not been able to, or had Biden not won, as far as we know right now, they'd be calling for every single challenge in the world. Hillary told Biden not to concede under any circumstance because I guarantee they had various things like this waiting, ready to go, so they could try to flip this. Everything about this election smells like a stolen election. And the opacity is the worst part of it. The fact that they don't want people to see what's going on with this. If you've got nothing to hide, then put it on the table. And I'm saying this to the government because that's not something that I would say to a private citizen. The government shouldn't be coming in and looking, and they tell you when you're in school, don't lawyer up because it's going to make you look guilty. And if you've got nothing to hide, then you should be able to put it out on the table. That's not the case in any of this. But when it comes to the government, that's the complete opposite. We need to hold our government accountable. And if they've got nothing to hide, why are they trying to hide it? We shouldn't have to lawyer up to go after the government. That's not the way our Constitution was designed. But that's what we're seeing in Wisconsin right now, and we will catch up with you both on Contemporary and on the Red Ned Show as they move through their recount and as they figure out what's going on with that. So we will see what is happening with that. All right, I want to talk just a bit about Sidney Powell here and everything else that went along with that, because that has been an absolute shit show on the side of the Trump campaign. But before we do that, I want to catch up with the live chat just a little bit here. Let's see if I can find a couple of articles to go with that too, because the Sidney Powell thing is craziness to me. I can't even begin to understand what's going on with that or how they've come to the conclusion that they've had. Looks like I've just got a little bit more from Ron Helton here. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I damn sure don't want to see these commies get in there with their new green steel and cripple us. Kanye was on the ballot here. That's awesome. Yeah, he wasn't on the ballot here. We didn't also. We had 3 people on the ballot in Wisconsin. Trump, obviously, Biden, and Joe Jorgensen had ballot access in Wisconsin. But other than that, we didn't have anybody else on the top line for Wisconsin. All right, let's talk about Sidney Powell and what's going on with that, because that is just insanity on every part of this here. So I'm going to read from Fox News. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, not a part of Trump's legal team, which is weird because they had her up with this big press conference last week. They had her right up on the stage, which the press conference in itself was just a shit show in and of itself. But what would you expect from Trump? I like what Styx has been saying about this sleight of hand here. I don't know if it's true or not. I like what he's saying. And if it's true, it'd be one of the best sleight of hands in the world here. But, I mean, Giuliani, you're talking about, what did he go to, Yale? You're talking about a high-educated lawyer who pushed New York City back through one of the greatest crises of all time and cleaned up New York City. Was able to go back and take down the mob. That's what you're talking about with Rudy Giuliani. He doesn't just go up there and have his hair dye melt and then wipe his hair down and then rub the hanky on his teeth or whatever the hell it was that he did. Unless there's something else going on in the background. Or he's old and he's just completely mentally gone at this point. So, from all of that, I see that there's a possibility that there's something else going on behind the scenes of this here. And that press conference was just bizarre. Now, Tucker came out right away and said, well, show us the evidence. If you've got the evidence, then just show us the evidence right away. Which, to the people who are coming out and to Tucker, too, if Tucker ever has to sue anybody, I hope that his legal team goes out on live TV and puts all of their evidence up on the table as well, so that the defense has a chance to go back and poke holes through it before it ever gets to the courtroom. I hope that if Tucker ever sues anybody, his lawyer does that, just so he understands why it is that Sydney is not coming out and giving all of the cards that she has on the table right now, because she shouldn't be. She absolutely 100% should not be putting all of her cards on the table. But in a bizarre turn of events yesterday, Giuliani came out and said, no, Sidney Powell, she's not on the legal team right now. So to read from Fox News, President Trump's campaign on Sunday distanced itself from Sidney Powell, saying that the lawyer who's been alleging voter fraud in the November election is not a member of the Trump legal team. Sidney Powell is practicing law on her own, said Trump's personal attorney Rudy Giuliani and another lawyer for Trump, Jenna Ellis, in a statement. She is not a member of the Trump legal team. She's also not a lawyer for the president in his personal capacity, which I knew that too. I didn't remember when, because when she first got up on the stage during this weird press conference, it said, we've got the evidence, we're going to pursue the evidence, and we're going to push down the evidence. I knew that she had never been hired by Trump's legal team personally. I knew right off the bat that she'd never been hired for that. So I don't know how it was that she ever got involved. I know that she was involved with the Michael Flynn case. As of right now, it appears that she is practicing on her own, and she is representing we the people in the election against the Elections Commission. But no, she's not working for the Trump team on any capacity. Which is odd, because she was up on the stage in the press conference. And I don't... That's the part that I don't understand with all of this. And I would have loved to have Elaine here, that I could bounce ideas back off on her and see if we can figure out why it was that she was up there saying that she was going to release the Kraken. Because the Kraken has yet to come. I want to see the Kraken. I really want to see the Kraken. But the Kraken has yet to come. So we'll see. I mean, this whole thing is just awkward, weird. No idea what's going on. Nobody seems to have any idea what's going on with this. But Powell is out. And I'd love to see what case it is that she has to bring forward from all of this here. I think that's all that I have for election news at this point. I mean, I've been at it for well over an hour going on with this. Yeah, that's all that I have for election news. So let's take a quick chat break here, see what we've got going on. And then we will move on. We'll talk about COVID and Thanksgiving and everything else that's going along with that. Ron says there were also 2 sets of independent candidates. That must have been Oklahoma. Harvey says, Tucker, shut the fuck up. I liked you once, and admittedly, I would... Whoa! Whoa! I'm not going to say that out loud. That's interesting. Paulo now has 1 million followers on Tweet Show. Yeah, this... At what point... And I want to ask you guys this over in the chat. At what point is this actual government process? And at what point is this the Federal Apprentice? Because I feel like this is Federal Apprentice at this point. 4 years of reality show, reality TV ratings, CNN getting better ratings than they've ever had in their life. New York Times, a former newspaper, getting subscriptions like they've never had in their lives. And you'll notice that New York Times went right behind a paywall as soon as they started getting people coming in to try and scream about the president. Washington Post having record sales. At what point is this just a reality show? Because this feels like a reality show. And I don't understand where it is that they feel that they can continue going along with this, because it's just, wow. All right, let's talk COVID here for a little bit, because we haven't talked about it enough in the last 9 fucking months. What are we on now? Like day 257 of 15 days to slow the spread? It's some ridiculous number at this point. We don't want to overwhelm the hospitals. And I saw the meme not that long ago, the meme of Jim from The Office. That was his name. I've only watched a couple episodes of The Office. I don't get The Office. I just want to let you guys know, I don't understand The Office. I don't understand why it's funny, why people enjoy it. They sure do. But I don't get it. But they had Jim from The Office with the whiteboard saying, if COVID lockdowns worked, then why do we need a second lockdown? And then the board underneath it said, if COVID lockdowns didn't work, then why are we having a second lockdown? Which is true, because why are we having a second lockdown here? But as of right now, the cases are apparently spiking all over the country, left and right. It's what the news media tells us. We don't really have any way to go back and independently verify it unless somebody sits down and gathers up the data from all 50 states constantly as they go along. For the most part, they're going to use the mainstream media to tell them whether or not it's going forward off of this now. But this being Thanksgiving, we talked last week about the restrictions. Newsom wants you to do your Thanksgiving dinner outside. A lot of these other states don't want you to go to Thanksgiving at all at this point. Evers doesn't want anybody to go out for Thanksgiving anywhere coming up at this point. Katie Hill got up and tweeted off her soapbox, I got a feeling that we're going to be having another set of lockdowns here in 2 weeks because of COVID transmission, because she thinks, rightly so, that people are just going to go out and spend the time with their family. And yes, you've had us in prison for 9 months at this point. These people have imprisoned us for 9 months without any sort of due process. Just kept us locked inside and felt that they could do it. And now they wonder what's going on with this. The first thing I want to touch on with this is that Governor Cuomo gave a very awkward press conference this past week. We're only going to grab a couple minutes of it, but he came out and he just started yelling at a reporter out of nowhere. I don't completely understand where this came from, how it was that he got so angry about this, but I mean, I have expected him to jump up over the table and start beating the dude down. Let's have a listen to what Governor Cuomo had to say on this. Hold off. We got some duct tape here because I forgot that I turned your audio off because we were having autoplay coming from some of these articles here. Let's try that again in all of our duct tapey goodness.
I'm a little unclear about New York City schools. The other day you said, this is the city's decision, they have an agreement at 3%. Today you said, well, I might have to impose an orange zone and I might have to close the schools, which an orange zone does. So what's going on? Does the city still have the ability to close its schools? Are you now taking control and saying that you have the power to make this decision? And for the millions of parents who want to know, are the schools going to open tomorrow in New York City?
All right. First of all, let's try not to be obnoxious and offensive in your tone, because you're 100% wrong. These laws have all been in effect for months. I've always said we set initial parameters, and then the school district picked a percent within those parameters. New York City picked 3%. We announced the orange zone law over a month ago. I don't know if you were here or if you were paying attention, but that has been in effect for over a month. It always said, if by the state's numbers you hit 3%, the schools close. What's going on here is nothing that the law hasn't said for over a month. We then had the test out procedures. If you were paying attention, you would have known we closed the schools in New York City 2 weeks ago. Remember when we did an orange zone and a red zone in Brooklyn and Queens, and we closed the schools? Don't you remember that?
It was 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already. That's the law, an orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
I'm still confused.
Well, then you're confused.
I'm confused, and
Then I'll tell you what, Jimmy.
Parents are still confused as well. The schools
Oh,
in New
they're
York
not
City
confused.
tomorrow.
You're confused.
No, I think
Read
parents
the
are
law.
very confused as well.
Read the law, and you won't be confused.
But Governor,
Go ahead.
to follow Jimmy's question, are the schools going to be open tomorrow?
The schools are open by state law.
Will they be open tomorrow? That's the question. I think Jimmy's correct in asking that question. I don't think it's obnoxious at all.
Well, I don't really care what you think. Of course, you agree with him because you're in the same business with him. The schools, by state law, well, what is the answer to your question? What is the answer to your question?
I don't know what the answer is.
Yes, you do.
You said
When
last
does the state close the schools?
When you get to an orange zone, which you're suggesting could happen, but is not necessarily happening by tomorrow.
So then what are you asking? You just answered your own question.
The other week
But on
you
one
said,
hand- on one
Excuse
hand-
me.
But on one hand, you have granted Bill de Blasio the kind of oversight of his schools, and there are rumors that the number in New York City will rise above 3%, which would trigger closing of schools. Now,
All right, I can't listen to this dude anymore because he is completely off of his fucking rocker here. And, I mean, there is the confusion. And, of course, very, very shortly after this press conference, de Blasio did come out and he shut the schools down. So, yeah, there's that. And what kind of steroids do you have to be on that you're just, I mean, the mainstream press does nothing but kiss the ass of people like Andrew Cuomo. He's a best-selling author because of a book that he wrote about his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, where he put people in to nursing homes to let the elderly die. But he's going to sit up there, whoa, you're not confused. How are you confused? Dude, in all seriousness, dude. In other parts of the country here, this was a bizarre conversation that I listened to just a bit ago. This nurse in South Dakota, which, my God, I hope to God I never get into this woman's emergency room. I've never been to South Dakota before, so I don't see how I ever would be, but I hope to God I never wind up in this nurse's emergency room. Because first and foremost, I don't believe a word that she's saying off of this. But second, if this is how you treat your patients to go on live TV and make fun of them, then you have no business nursing whatsoever. Yes, I understand that some nurses will come back and complain about patients among their friends. I have friends that are nurses. I understand that it happens. But to go on national television, on CNN, to do this was just insane, the fact that she was able to do this. Let's see what she had to say.
The hospital is being overrun with COVID patients. They come in, they're horribly ill, they're gasping for breath, and yet they don't believe they have COVID?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing to watch is that people are still looking for something else and they want a magic answer and they don't want to believe that COVID is real. And the reason I tweeted what I did is it wasn't one particular patient, it's just a culmination of so many people. And their last dying words are, this can't be happening, it's not real. And when they should be spending time FaceTiming their families, they're filled with anger and hatred. And it just made me really sad the other night. And I just can't believe that those are going to be their last thoughts and words.
Anger and hatred towards you?
I think it's just a belief that it's not real, and nursing happens to be on the receiving end of that. And that's okay. We can take that. That's what you're there for. It's just in the bigger picture when you try to reason with people of, can I call your family, your kids, your wife, your friend, your brother? And they say no, because I'm going to be fine. And you're watching their oxygen levels, maxed out on what we call vapotherm at 100%, and their oxygen level might be 75. That's not really that compatible with life. And we know where that's going to head. And it just makes you sad and mad and frustrated. And then you know that you're just going to come back and do it all over again. And that's kind of where that stemmed from.
All right, and that's what she had to say about her. I mean, this is a woman who's gone into a career that requires a level of empathy. And I don't see that from her. I don't see an ounce of empathy coming from this. This is somebody who's gone on national television to go and have the conversation that you usually have in the bar over a couple drinks with your closest confidants. Not something that you go up on CNN and say. So she had that to say. And once again, I hope that I never wind up in an ER where this woman is working. Whether or not what she's saying is even true, because I've been hearing some dissenting opinions as to whether any of what she said even happened. I've been hearing dissenting opinions about that. And yet she'll come up on CNN and talk about this here. So I talked just a bit about old Gruesome Newsom over there in California and all of his new lockdowns and the fun stuff that he has. Now California apparently has a 10 p.m. curfew. I believe it is statewide because the coronavirus, of course, cannot come out after and affect anybody after. I'm sorry, it only comes out at 10:01. It can affect anybody else any time throughout the day. But some people in some California counties decided that they had had enough. Let's see what that looked like. I think that was Clint from Liberty Lockpod that was rolling by at the end of that. Let's go have a look at that one more time. I think that was him. What do you guys think? You guys know Clint. Clint's a good guy. He helped me out there at one of the last seconds there. So Clint is a good guy. But they decided in California that they're not having this. And interestingly enough, there were only, well, let's read the article here so we can see here. But interestingly enough, this was a fairly benign protest. From ABC 7, protesters gather in Huntington Beach in defiance of state curfew amid COVID-19 surge. A crowd of dozens of people gathered in front of the Huntington Beach Pier on Saturday night to protest on the first night of a nearly statewide nighttime curfew aimed at slowing the spread of COVID-19 because it only comes out at 10:01. The curfew affects all counties in Southern California, but protesters in Orange County were sending a message to Governor Gavin Newsom saying that they won't follow the guidelines. The people gathered at 10 p.m. Saturday along the PCH at Main Street, crossing the highway when allowed by the traffic light, said Huntington Beach Police Lieutenant Ryan Riley. And it's not just the fact that they're coming out here. This was, like I said, a very, very benign demonstration. According to this same article, the only real arrests that came out of this were a couple people got popped for drunk in public. And nothing else. No property got damaged. Of course, a little bit of wear and tear on the streets, but no property really got damaged. A little bit of beer got spilled. People got drunk, did stupid shit in public, got arrested for it. But for the most part, everything is still intact at this point. But man, those violent right-wing protests, I'm telling you here, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. And that's what we start to need to see. And it's not just this. I mean, some of these police chiefs are coming out and the sheriff's deputies that go along with this and say, you know what, Gavin, go fuck yourself. We're not going to go enforce any of this. You can talk about it all you want. We are not going to enforce any of this because you're out of your mind with power right now. And he is. He is absolutely out of his mind with power. So good on this for this, and good on these people for standing up for their rights and doing what's right. That's what we need to see, is more people doing this. More people coming out and saying no. In a place where we can say no. I know over in Germany, they really can't say no because, they'll get the hose turned on them. Let's talk just a bit about that. Let me see what the live chat's saying here. Hey, I want to become famous. I can buy some followers, primes, and viewers. Should I click on the link? Should I check that out? Maybe become famous? I'll buy some primes and viewers? All right, let's see what you guys are saying. Ron Helton said Powell now has 1 million followers on Tweet Show. Is that because he's cute, Harvey? Cute and rich. They're rich. That's the word right there. That usually gets it going. I can't see what that emoji is over on the Twitch side. Looks like it's Marsha. I can tell that. Ron says, I don't find The Office funny either. Now Office Space, the movie, is hilarious. Maybe because I can relate to those guys. Yeah, I never understood The Office. I don't get it. I don't get it. I tried. I've tried. I've given The Office a chance numerous times, but I don't understand it. Harvey says, except Newsom can go to the French Laundry with no mask or any regard to social distancing. Ron Helton says something that I'm not going to say on the air, but I will preface it with defensively, Susan. I'm going to be stretching as far as I can as to what I can say on YouTube later on in the show. And those of you who watch the morning show already know what it is, what I'm going to say. But I will be stretching as far as I can for what I can say on YouTube. Harvey says, okay, first of all, how about you just answer yes or no? Ron says, I can't believe that Nipple Ring Cuomo is still alive, but then again, he is mafia, so there's that. Read the law, go fuck yourself. Harvey says, America first. Ron says, damn typos tonight. Yeah, look at all those protesters and rioters. That was one chunky monkey, bodybuilder type. I looked like that about 10 years ago. Time to get back in shape. Fact check needed, please. Sergeant Peter said, spilt beer off with their heads. Welcome in, Sergeant Peterson. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. No clicky. But I want followers and primes and viewers, though. I want them. Bigfollows.com. I want them so bad. CLCK.RU, by the way. That's not suspicious at all, going to a Russian website. Watching trains go by says, sorry late, what did I miss, and does it matter? Well, as of right now, Elaine is in an internet outage at home. We've been texting back and forth, and they're having problems over there, so that's the start of it. That's why I'm standing here alone. We tried, but without her being able to see the document, we probably wouldn't have been able to get her in on the voice and get her caught up to anything, nor would she be able to hear the video, so... And then we've just been talking about the recounts and now the coronavirus stuff, so that's what you've missed so far. Thanks for hanging out with us, though. Let's keep going here. Wreaths Across America. This has been an interesting story throughout the week because it's off and then it's on. And now it looks like it might be back off again. Updated yesterday. From KMOV4, Wreaths Across America in need of wreath sponsors. Public ceremony canceled due to COVID-19. The annual Wreaths Across America tradition will continue to take place at cemeteries across the world this year, including at Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery. Last year, more than 32,000 wreaths were laid at grave sites within the cemetery. However, organizers of this year's event said the number is lagging behind significantly. So this may actually just be local for the Springfield area in Missouri. As of the last time I checked in Arlington, it is back on for Arlington, which, as the R-rated conservative said last week, what are they going to do? Infect the fucking dead? What do you think is going to fucking happen for this? As of right now, as far as I know, Wreaths Across America is back on for Arlington. As far as for your local Army cemetery, military cemetery, check your local listings to see if it is back on in your area. I presume that some of you it will be on and some of you it will be off, depending on COVID fears and what the mainstream media have told people to be afraid of. But it's been interesting, and, you know, I don't know how packed this is. I've never been to Wreaths Across America. But I understand people are going to want to go out and they're going to want to pay their respects. Paying military respects is a big thing in this country. It always has been. People are going to want to do it. No matter what they see about the state or not, people are going to want to go out and pay their respects for these kinds of things. So with that, they'll assess their own personal level of risk. And from what I understand, from what I remember throughout the summer, all of these outdoor events were supposed to be fine as long as you socially distance. And I can understand the people that are going to be going to an event like this that are going to socially distance. They're going to do what's right for them and what's right for their families and what's right for everybody else. I have faith in the people to be able to assess their own level of risk and take care of it for that. So check your local listings to see if your local Wreaths Across America is going to be on or off at this point here. The CDC got into the news just a little bit this past week. They're putting together a panel to decide who is going to get the vaccine first. And as I mentioned on the morning show when I talked about this, I'm sure that the first people that are going to get it are going to be the Politburo, the friends of the political figures, the people who have paid their pittance, the business leaders who have sufficiently carried the Black Lives Matter message. They'll be the ones that get the first pick. But, of course, the CDC is going to come out and tell you, oh, it's going to be the frontline workers, it's going to be the hospital workers, it's going to be these people, that people, the people that go to the grocery stores, they're going to be on the front line. It's going to be their politically connected friends first, but they are deciding who's going to get it and who's going to not. I'll tell you what, I can save you one dose right now because I'm not taking the damn thing. I don't care what you tell me. I'm not taking the COVID-19 vaccine, especially as fast as they rush the damn thing out. I ain't taking it. I don't take the flu shot either. And people get the flu shot and still get the flu. As far as I can see, because I'm in relatively decent... Now, if I was older or in worse health, I would consider going a different route for this. But I'm 36. I'm in relatively decent health, especially after I've lost the weight that I've had and stopped smoking as much as I did. I'm in relatively decent health. And I'm not worried about the flu right now. So I don't take the flu vaccine, and I'm not going to take the coronavirus. If I do get it, which I'm pretty sure I've already had it to begin with, but if I do wind up getting it, then I'll be fine. Under all the statistics, I'll be fine. And if I'm not fine, well, then I guess I'll just be dead. And that'll be the end of it. So no, I won't be taking this. So that'll save you one dose right there that you can go off and ration off to somebody else who feels that they need it. And there are people that, if you want the vaccine, I'm not going to tell you not to take it. I'm not a tyrant. My name is not Joe Biden. If you want to take the vaccine, if it makes you feel better, then take the vaccine. But I'm not going to take it. But they're coming out here and they're rationing it out for you. Let's see. What else do I have on COVID-19? Joe Biden comes out and says, under no circumstance will there be a national lockdown. That came to us from Newsweek. So he's flip-flopped at this point. Now his advisors came out and said, no, we're going to have a lockdown. We're going to have the 4 to 6. And he's been saying that right off the beginning. Now I think somebody came up and tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, constitutionally, you can't do that. And now he's back on the train of there's not going to be a national lockdown. And he was going nuts on this at whatever point he was going with this. He wasn't just coming out and saying, well, we're going to have the national lockdown. He was saying he was going to go by federalism and go down to the mayors and county commissioners and try to pressure them if the governors wouldn't play ball. Go around the chain of command and try to make sure that these big population centers were going to put their people in prison and lock down their economies. They wanted depression. They wanted depression so bad right now because they want to be able to come back and say, well, this is going to be Trump's economy. So he has flip-flopped on that. He is not going to have a national lockdown at this point. Berlin went back under lockdown, and the people of Berlin had said, no, we're not going to do this shit anymore. And unfortunately for the people of Berlin, they don't have a constitution that protects them the way that we have over here. And over in Berlin, I guess they had to put the lotion on their skin or else they got the hose again. And they wound up getting the hose again. It's a picture of the high-pressure water cannon blasting at the people of Berlin who are standing outside and protesting right now. So let's have a little bit of a read here from the Associated Press. German police used water cannons and pepper spray Wednesday to disperse people protesting coronavirus restrictions in Berlin's government district after crowds ignored calls to wear masks and keep their distance from one another in line with the pandemic regulation. Just think about that. And there were talks about the Insurrection Act and what to do about people. They were talking about using microwaves or sound cannons or various other methods to disperse crowds during the St. George riots that we had going all across the country. But just think about what they can't do in this country. They say that Trump is a tyrant, that he will go to any length to crush his opposition. And yet, people were allowed to get away with much, much worse in Atlanta, in Portland, in Minneapolis, in Chicago, in Philadelphia. They were allowed to get away with much worse. They were allowed to get away with much worse in my hometown, Kenosha. And yes, they brought the military vehicles out, the military guns out, and they started to quell some of the stuff down in the states that would take it. And not every state took it. But imagine if you didn't have the Constitution to protect you from cruel and unusual punishment. If the government could be authorized to use a high-pressure water cannon against you, people got maimed and injured from that. I'm so glad that I live in this country, no matter how bad the politics get. And I might change my tune, depending on what it is that they do coming up in the next election. But as of right now, I am so glad that I live in this country, not anywhere else. Because they can get away with doing this kind of thing in other places. All right, I got just a little bit more to talk to you guys about here, including Rittenhouse And some of the Warhawks jumping out here, but let's see what you guys are saying. Yeah, Sergeant Peterson says no clicky, but I want the followers and the primes. Ron Helton says, I survived it. Unless you have other health issues, you should be fine. Peterson says the vax is 95% effective. Our bodies are 99.7% effective. Train says once people figured out the flu shot makes you sick, vulnerable people kept going to the hospital, dying from it. They changed the story. It's supposed to give you flu to build immunity to the flu if you get it. Peterson says, I haven't been sick since I got out of the military. No more fourth vax for me. Ron says, yeah, most vaccines are worthless. Big Pharma has a bunch of greedy assholes running it. Train says, did you hear about Michigan and Pennsylvania both certifying tonight and Trump allowing GSA to work with transition team? No, that's news to me here. Go ahead and put that in the Discord. We'll probably talk about that in the morning. Ron says, well, I almost had my brain fried from military vaccines. Not going to be taking their vaccines. Train says, sorry, Pennsylvania says the votes with no or bad signatures and stuff can be counted. Yeah. I didn't have faith that they were going to turn this over. I really didn't. Between the media circus that went along with this, and we'll talk about this next week for sure, but we do have to sit down and have a conversation about what the media is going to do for the next 4 years, because they're not going to be able to get their hate clicks. And people are just not going to click on the stories about Joe Biden playing with his dog. They're not. It's not going to be the same thing when people are going and rage clicking MSNBC as fast as they fucking can. Ron says, yeah, well, time to go to the Supreme Court, and if that doesn't work, one vote for state in the House. Sergeant Peterson says the politicians wipe their bums with the Constitution. Wolverines. Ron says, strange to say that you are glad to live here. There's talk of leaving this corrupt union if Biden is seated. Everyone knows they will keep pushing the socialist agenda with him in office. But we are here and we do have the ability to fight back. They're mostly disarmed in Germany. The military can get away with it because they know that there's not going to be any pushback and there's not going to be any possibility of pushback. The police can carry their guns and they're not going to be worried about facing down somebody that has a gun against them. They can turn the hose on them and not have to worry. Yes, I'm worried about the Biden socialist agenda. I'm less worried given the fact that the House is sitting on a razor-thin margin right now, with a lot of Democrats that are sitting and wondering whether or not they're going to be reelected in 2022. And a Senate that has a very, very good chance of going against the president for the first time in decades. And yeah, like Sergeant Peterson said, he's here to stay and fight. I'm here to stay and fight. And even if I don't fight, I want to see this down to the end. Matt Christensen puts on a very, very good allegory to this. And I'm going to borrow his phrase for just a second here, if you'll allow me to borrow from Matt Christensen to talk about this, because I'm ready to watch this ship sink and stand on the bow of what was America with my fiddle and cling to it until the bitter end. Until this country is destroyed, whether from within or from the outside, I will sit back and watch it as it sinks. And I will talk into the golden Edsblog Productions microphone the whole time and tell you what I think about the country as it sinks. I hope that we can turn the ship around, that we can pull it back up out of the depths. But I will be sitting here fighting the whole way to try and keep it on course. Either way. All right. Let's what's watching trains go by have to say. I'll get my family. Ron says if Biden wants to take our weapons, anybody verify that he wants to charge a tax for firearms that we already possess? That is not freedom. Yeah, but that'll get overturned in SCOTUS. Sergeant Peterson says, I'll get my family to a safe place. Train says they really don't think the Patriots are ready and willing. They think the onliners represent the actual resistance, and they're in for a surprise. Yeah, that's one thing too. When I tried to get that ballot counter to come on across the board, and if he answers, then that's what we're going to do for across the board. Otherwise, we might do a great reset across the board instead. But when I reached out to the ballot counter that we talked about earlier on, somebody else came into the chat and said, it's not time for talk anymore. It's time to form up a great constitutional army and take back the government for ourselves. And I mean, people like that are cannon fodder. They'll form up a little constitutional army and they will go directly to Washington, D.C. to try and take back the government. And the U.S. military will decimate them. They will decimate them. However, in doing so, once they are decimated, first they are going to take some of the bullets and some of the strength out of the U.S. military, because the U.S. military will have to fight them. They're going to take property values down because they'll die and their houses will have to get sold. Unfortunately, that's the truth. But furthermore, it will give the government the confidence that they can come out and try to enact their agenda. The government and the military does not have the manpower to take the fight to us. The people who bring the fight to them, yeah, they're cannon fodder. They absolutely are. But they don't have the manpower to bring the fight to us. So, and yeah, Sergeant Peterson's, Trains is right. They don't think the Patriots are ready and willing. As long as they bring the fight to us, we are ready and willing. We can send the cannon fodder into the line of tanks, but they're not going to bring the tank to your door. Unless, of course, you have a tank, and then they'll probably bring the tank to your door. Ron says, I know dozens of men who are not on social media who are highly upset with us. Yeah, once the government tries to bring the fight to us, they're fucked. Because they will be spread too thin, too far. Yes, they've got the superior technology, but they will be spread too thin and too far to be effective. There are a lot more of us than there are of them. So yes, we'll send the cannon fodder in to beat them up a little bit, and then we will see if they will take the fight to us. And I'm kind of interested to see this. All right, I got just a little bit more here to talk about here. Let's see, what do I got on the schedule here? I want to talk a little bit about Biden and what it is that he plans to do coming along with this, because they're starting to talk about the transition team and getting it in place, whether or not Trump is ready to let go. And one of the things that has been talked about this past week is the student loan debt. Now, I'm going to, if I ever get off my ass and do a solo video again, I do want to sit down and do a solo video and talk to you guys about what the best way to do student debt is, because there is a methodology to this that we could solve the student debt crisis, but they don't want to solve the student debt crisis right now because it gets lemmings, for lack of a better word, to vote for Democrats. And if you solve their problems, then they're not going to vote for Democrats anymore. But as of this point, from the Blaze, Joe Biden supports immediately canceling some student loan debt, penalizing American taxpayers. And yeah, if they cancel some of the loan debt, then they're not going to go after and tack this back out to the private industry. They're going to go back and they're going to pull this back up off the taxpayer. And of course, everybody on Twitter is, well, they're not going to do it to the taxpayer. They're going to go after the loan sharks and the billionaires. There is not enough money. If you accrue every single penny from every billionaire in this country, it will not be enough to pay off the student debt. I mean, that wouldn't even pay for Medicare for a year if you taxed and confiscated 100% all of the upper 1%, which is who these people keep saying that they're going to go back after. But according to the Blaze, it looks like Biden is going to pass, or he's going to attempt to pass, a mandate that forgives, I believe it is the first $10,000 from every single student borrower out there. Which, okay, where does the money come from? And he doesn't have an answer as to where the money comes from, and I don't believe he can do that because the Congress holds the power of the purse. And any bill that the House comes out with is going to get vetoed by the Senate. Even Manchin, if he comes up here, isn't going to go for this radical agenda going off this. He is a classic Democrat. To the point that I don't know if the Democrats are going to let him stay in the Democrat Party for very much longer here. But yes, as of this point, Biden voiced support for a proposal from House Democrats that would forgive up to $10,000 of student debt per borrower. Immediate $10,000 forgiveness of student loans, helping people up there in real trouble, Biden said, Fox News reported. House Democrats originally proposed forgiving $10,000 of student loan debt per borrower as part of the proposal for a second COVID-19 relief bill. And that actually fixes a lot of it for people, but you also have to sit back and consider, what do you do about the people that were responsible, about the people that paid it? There are better ways to do this, and I am sympathetic to the student loan crisis. I'm in it. Because I sat for 10 years and wasn't able to get work. I'm in it. I'm sorry, not 10 years, but 6 years. I wasn't able to get good work. And now I'm sitting back behind the 8 ball trying to figure out what to do about it at this point. I'm in the crisis. I understand what the pain is going on with this. But just going off and snapping your fingers and raising taxes on people and blowing out the budget is not the way to do it. But of course, now every Democrat comes out and says that they want to give away free stuff, and that's how they come out and get voted in, is they want to go out and give away free stuff. I'm going to do a solo video on that. I might even do that tonight, so we can come back and have a talk about this here, because it's fresh on my mind, and I do want to go a little bit more into depth into this, and further into depth than what I can go in the next 7 minutes here. But that's going to be a big part of the Biden transition plan. The big thing that I want to keep talking about, and I want to make sure everybody knows, is the fact that the Warhawks are suddenly circling right now. They're looking over the fact that they're going to get Trump out of office, who ran on a platform of not starting any new wars and trying to end the wars that they have currently. Now, Trump is currently trying to draw down more troops in Afghanistan. And you know what? I'm just going to let Tammy Duckworth say it for you, because she can say it better than I can. And I still have the Police picture up here, by the way. Whoops. There it is. Finally it loaded.
All of the military commanders have spoken up and said this is the wrong thing to do. We want our troops home, but let's not bring them home in body bags. And that's potentially what's going to happen if this president gets his way and puts his own political timeline ahead of our national security.
Warhawks, every one of them. Dan Crenshaw was up on the same boat here. He was on the same thing, trying to convince all of Congress that getting out of Afghanistan, which has been going on for 19 years rather, I'm sorry. For 19 years we've been in Afghanistan. People are fighting in Afghanistan that weren't born when 9/11 happened. And they're going to sit there and try to tell you that this is a bad thing, that they want to get people out of here, that they want to pull the troops out of there. They're still going to sit back and continue to try and convince you that this is a bad thing. And it's not just her. It's Crenshaw. It's Ilhan. Ilhan has got one of the worst ones here. Let's see what she had to say off of this one. From Fox News, Omar suggests Biden should reverse Trump's Middle East agreement, says they weren't peace deals. Representative Ilhan Omar laid out a scathing attack on President Trump's foreign policy Friday, arguing his Middle East agreements weren't actually peace deals, but arms deals that should be reversed by the next administration. By the way, I've read the peace deals, and they're not arms deals. I really wish Elaine would have been here for this one, because she has got a very different opinion on the peace deals than I do. But Ilhan is out there trying to tell you to reverse them, of course, because they're all peace deals with Israel. And one of the things to look at when you look at the Middle East is the fact that everybody is pointed between Iran and Israel. And right now, with the way that the peace deals are structured, these countries can't give any material support to Iran in order to attack Israel. given the fact that Saudi Arabia was one of the countries that got onto this, that takes away a lot of real estate that Iran could possibly use to launch an offensive against Israel by land. They would have to go by sea, and even then, they would have to go all the way around the Arabian Peninsula to do it. I think they'd have to go all the way around Africa to do it in order to go back and attack Israel. I think they'd have to come in through the Mediterranean. I would have to look over my Middle East geography once again, but I don't think there's a straight shot to Israel coming up around the Arabian Peninsula. And of course, I say Iranian Navy in quotes because they don't have shit. But yes, she's up there now trying to tell you that it's time to cancel the Middle East peace deals because I guess they were too good to Israel. And this is a woman who has the same ideas about Israel as David Duke does, which is hilarious. All right, let's talk a little bit of a Rittenhouse here because a couple of things developed in this over the week here. And then we will head on out of here for the I'll read the live chat and we'll head on out of here for the day. I don't have enough in here to pop the chest. I want to pop the chest, but there's only 8.2 in there for right now. So we need to get more people in here and more people chatting. All right. First and foremost, the New York Post thought this was news. Kenosha killer Kyle Rittenhouse bought AR-15 with stimulus check. Report. So, like many people out there, Kyle Rittenhouse went out and bought a gun with a stimulus check, which I know a few other people did. I know that our good friend Seawall was tossing around the idea of buying a firearm with the stimulus check. I cut my stimulus check up. But if I had kept it under any circumstance, I probably would have bought a gun too. But the government didn't have the funds to back up the idea. And of course, we all know it was a straw purchase that he went out and he had Dominic Black go out and buy it for him. The gun never left Wisconsin. They're going to come out and try to claim, oh, well, he brought it across state lines and that's why this is such a crime. He brought it across. No, it never left Wisconsin. He got cleared on that in Illinois. He never possessed the gun in Illinois. But they considered this to be news. But the big news of the week is the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse has been sprung. According to NBC News, Kenosha murder suspect Kyle Rittenhouse posts $2 million bond. No longer in custody. He was helped along this with the thought of the MyPillow, or with the help of the MyPillow guy, which we saw the meme earlier on today. Mike Lindell and Ricky Schroeder. I'd never heard of this guy before, but apparently he was on Silver Spoons, which may be a TV show that's older than I am. I have no idea. I've never heard of that TV show either. Both helped up, and Twitter went nuts, including one Florida congressional member who came out and said that Kyle Rittenhouse should run for Congress, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, by the way, when he did that, and the reactions. I got into it, and I started arguing with a couple people just to get them frothing up at the mouth, and then I went on a 4-hour drive, and I never used the Twitter mobile app, so they were just shouting into the wind for hours, and they were shouting into the wind, too. But as of right now, Kyle Rittenhouse is out on a $2 million bond. Now, the weird thing about this, other than the fact that people think that he actually had these suspects kneeling down with their hands behind their head and he killed them execution style, which to read some of their tweets you would believe that that's what they believe here, is the picture that they had up of Kyle Rittenhouse when he got out, when he was sitting with L. Lynn Wood and Schroeder. Let me get that one up here for you. So this is the picture that got released, the official one that got released out right away. And it showed Kyle Rittenhouse in a Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt. Now, Elijah Schaffer decided that he had to jump out right away and say, well, Kyle Rittenhouse uses Black Rifle Coffee and he's now free, so use our promo code. And then he put his Blaze promo code up there with this picture out there. And then the Blaze had to come, or I'm sorry, Black Rifle Coffee rather, had to come out. They cut their ties with the Blaze, which I think was a bitch move on all of itself. But then the CEO came out and made this statement here, and I will read this verbatim for you guys. A statement from CEO Evan Hafer on Black Rifle Coffee Company's mission. As a veteran-owned and operated coffee company, Black Rifle Coffee Company exists to serve premium coffee while supporting the veteran community. At the core of Black Rifle Coffee's values is to support and bring awareness to the millions of veterans who have proudly served our nation, and we will not waver from that mission. The Black Rifle brand is a symbol of service, of strength, and of goodness that has carried over from our military origins. It's why we support active duty service members and veterans, prioritize veteran hiring, and advocate for individual liberty and personal responsibility. Hold on a sec. I'm going to see if we can get a co-host here. Just at least for these last couple segments. Let's see if she answers that one in the positive, and then we can possibly bring her in here for this. Let me finish this out here. The Black Rifle brand is a symbol of service, of strength, and of goodness that is carried over from our military origins. It's why we support active duty service members and veterans, prioritize veteran hiring, and advocate for individual liberty and personal responsibility. We do not support legal advocacy efforts. We do not sponsor, nor do we have a relationship with the 17-year-old facing charges in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We believe in the integrity of the legal justice system and support law enforcement officials. We're grateful to the continued support of the Black Rifle Coffee community and eager to continue serving those who serve. I read this and I tweeted right back because they put it out in a tweet. I clicked on the link. I went back to the link and I said, okay, I am done buying your products at this point. You just threw somebody who sent you, you threw one of your customers who is proud enough of your brand to wear your t-shirt. Whereas you are a company that prides yourself on serving veterans. And you just took him back and threw him under the fucking bus. No. We will not be, I'm not buying that coffee in this house. Not after that. And we will see what happens with Rittenhouse here. Like I said, the big case is going to be, and he is facing first-degree intentional homicide from this, which comes with a burden of intent. I don't think the persecutor in Kenosha County right now has intent. I put out a fairly long tweet thread about this yesterday, and it was one of the things that, it's been rattling through my mind. I am willing to hear the persecutor out. Remember, those of us who are watching this situation have only seen a couple of videos on this situation. We've only seen the video of the guy shooting the gun into the air. That came from the New York Times. And then the video of Kyle Rittenhouse running away while he got bashed over the head with a skateboard. And Gage Grosskreutz holding the gun right before he got his bicep blown off. That's all that we have seen. Now, there may be other evidence out there that we're not privy to. I am at least willing to hear the persecutor out. I don't believe he's got shit, but I'm at least willing to hear him out. But like I mentioned, to listen to the left at this point, you would think that all three of these guys were lined up with blindfolds on, their hands bound behind their heads, kneeling down, and Kyle Rittenhouse put one in each of the back of their heads. And then missed and blew Gage Grosskretz's arm off. To read some of their tweets, you would actually believe that that's what happened. Without having seen the video for yourself. And of course, because of what Conservative Inc. has told the right to think, because that's what they do, they just tell these guys what to think. You would think that this is the greatest thing, and Kyle is allowed to be a judge and a jury and an executioner for people who committed crimes long, long ago. The only crimes that are relevant in this point, where we see Kyle Rittenhouse sitting, deciding whether or not to raise his arm in self-defense, are the fact that somebody shot in the air as they were chasing Kyle Rittenhouse down while he was trying to put out a fire, number one. And he may get negligent for that one because now that I look more at the evidence, that does, the first one for Huber, I think it was, with the plastic bag, does seem to be like that could be either man two or negligent homicide. There could be that one, but he's overcharged at this. And then we see the video of him running away with a guy with a skateboard in his hand, get ready to bash it over the head, take his gun away from him, and then turn it around and shoot it at him. And then Greuskreutz with the gun in his hand. So, we'll see what happens off of this. And good on him for defending himself. All right, I got one more here, and it's surprise stupidity. I was really hoping Elaine would be here. I'm going to save this, actually. You know what? I am going to save this one because I read it on the morning show. But this is so cringy, I have to share it. I have to share this one. So let's catch up with the live chat here. We'll head on out of here for the day. And we will be back here in the morning. Hopefully the internet outage will be over. And we will have Elaine back for the next show. I promise she's out there still. I do promise that she's out there. All right, let's see what we've got going on here. Last one we read was Ron Helton saying that he knew dozens of men who are not on social media who are upset with this. Silent Caster is here, and he says, hello, hello. Sergeant Peterson says, property value over liberty. I'll take liberty. Ron says, well, I'm not taking any fight to the commies, just refusing to be part of their nonsense anymore. They can't beat us in the long run. Vietnam, Afghanistan. That's where I'm saying, when they bring the fight, like if we organized up a military and brought it to them on one battlefield, they would wipe all of us back out in an instant. If we brought the fight to them. But, yes, like Afghanistan and Iraq and Vietnam, if they bring the fight to the people, the insurgents will be the ultimate victors. Hold them to a stalemate forever. Because they would be stretched way too thin to do that. Ron Held says, somebody said that student debt is a libertarian position. I told them that they forgot the word. Yeah, I saw that earlier today. Yeah, somebody tried to say that cancellation of student debt is a libertarian position. Now, she had her points. They were stupid as fuck, but she had her points. That people go to the army, they join the army to avoid paying student debt. As essentially what the point was that she was going with on that. Any form of government regulation is not a libertarian position. My idea is not a libertarian position. I will come right out and say that my idea for student debt is not a libertarian position. But with the direction that the crisis has come into, I think it's about the only way to do it. Train says, me neither, Ron. When I say Trump 2020 or 1776, it's because I believe Trump really is a time traveler, and that's what it means to me. Ron says, well, we saw what Biden's plans are on his website and his past legislation. Yeah, they scrubbed that shit. He is a terrible person. He's un-American and he has no right to lead the military or executive branch. Come on, man. Come on. Train says, most people just see the free stuff neon sign and don't understand the economics of it all. Even I don't entirely, but I know enough to see how bad it is. Doesn't she mean their national security? Train says, what's this young something Democrat board Crenshaw is on that people are pissed about? I never liked or trusted him personally. He's a Warhawk. That's all that he is. He's just a fucking Warhawk. He wants to go out and go to war because he loves the military. He loves going and fighting in the Middle East, and he thinks that it'll bring a sense of honor to another generation of people. He wants the endless wars because that fits his agenda. He is a classic neocon fucking Warhawk. And the people of Texas need to remove him from office as quickly as possible. Ron says, more chatting. Yes, more chatting and tell more friends because, like I said at the beginning of the show, 2,000 subscribers by January 1st of 2022, and I will run for president. And that's on YouTube. You guys could easily get me up to 2,000 on DLive. But YouTube is actually actively suppressing. So if you can get around their active suppression and get me up to 2,000 by 2022, I will run for president. You've got time. I don't know how well I'm going to do, but I will run. I'm already working on a platform. I think you guys can do it. Ron says Kyle didn't do nothing. Self-defense is not murder. All gun laws are infringements. Time for his lawyers to make that point so we can destroy all these illegal gun laws. 1934 Firearms Act, 1968 Gun Control Act, Brady Bill, local and state laws. Train says Kyle gets out. BRC disavows him in a written press release. And then again in a verbal one, apparently. I didn't see the verbal one. Calling the shootings a tragedy while backing away from Kyle. Now both sides hate them. Yeah, they bent the knee to people that were never going to buy their coffee anyway. Ron says, who is BRC? Sounds familiar. Not with it tonight. Oh, never mind. Train says, LOL, he's got your back. Black Rifle Coffee, more a-holes whose opinions are garbage. Ron has no filter, and I love it. I love Ron Helton in the chat. Everybody needs to have a Ron Helton in their live chat. Ron says, no, it's all self-defense. Kyle was running from all three of those sons of bitches. He was defending himself. They should have stopped chasing him. Darwin Award for those three jackasses. And Trains will get the last word for the night here. And says there were 2 very good vids on YouTube showing several angles and entire timeline well laid out. Yeah, they took their sourcing from the New York Times, which is who these assholes worship, is the New York Times. They worship the New York Times. Well laid out. I never bookmarked, but after watching this, it was good as anything the lawyers could want. Yeah, and it is. And once again, if the persecutor's got something different, I am willing to hear him out. I'm absolutely willing to hear him out. I don't know if the persecutor's got something different. But let's have the trial and let's see it. Like I said, I don't think he personally has shit. But I'm willing to at least hear him out. All right, and that is going to be it for the night here. We are going to... I'm going to head out of here. I don't know what you guys are going to do. Hopefully you don't stay talking too long in a live chat together when we've got a Discord server, which you can check out below here. But that is going to be it for the night. So, thanks everybody who came and hung out and joined us, or joined me rather, in this and this lively discussion of what went on. And if you are just joining now, you want to catch back the replay, you can catch us over on YouTube and over on BitChute.com. And I promise I'll get caught up with the audio platform too. You can find us over on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go over there, head over there, check us out, pick up some of our... I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my promos here. Go over there and give us the 5-star ratings, subscriptions, and good reviews. That helps us move up the charts over there. And lastly, you can catch us over on YouTube, BitChute. Leave us a like and a subscription over there if you like what you see. All of our archives are over there. Or you can go over and check out freedomscoop.com with the other great shows like The Freckles of Brit Show, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Generational Gap. Come on over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. I will be back here in the morning for more contemporary. I'm sure that we see some more news. You guys have brought me up a couple links here, a couple things to check out, so I'll definitely be checking that out. Definitely looking forward to that here, and we will be back here next week with a new, or not a new co-host, but with our current co-host. Hopefully, we won't have anything bad going on this time. We'll be double checking and triple checking as we go along, and in a little bit tighter communication as we start out through the week. So come back by next week and check us out for more of the Red and Ed Show. Remember, by the way, as you're going along with your Thanksgiving, I will be out here with you guys on Thanksgiving. It'll be probably not news, but we will be doing contemporary on Thanksgiving, and I hope to get some calls in as well to hear what you guys are thankful for. But hopefully we'll get a short show out here. You can spend some time with your families and still spend some time with your YouTube, DLive, and Twitch family as well. Lastly, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions, and that's so important right now because they're trying to jam so many odd facts down your throat here and tell you what it is that you're supposed to believe, and you should be finding what it is that you can draw from all the angles that are put in front of you, not just the ones that the mainstream media keeps trying to feed you. So find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care, everybody, and have a good night.